some water. Excuse me, family. But this is what this demon would do. 30 forced, 30 forced operations on Antarctica alone. Taking forceps and all kind of medical tools. I don't know the name of all those things. Imagine, sisters, if there's any sisters listening, if you got a pap smear and how painful that was, or that is. Could you imagine someone taking forceps that spread your legs apart and spread your vagina apart with no anesthesia, and you got all these demons pinning you down, telling you to shut up while he's practicing how to be a gynecologist? This is recorded history, and he gets a goddamn statue in Central Park for forcing operations on black women as he's practicing gynecology. No mention of that on the statue. He's standing there like he's some damn hero. His name is Dr. Marion Sims, and he has a statue in Central Park where people walk back and forth with their dogs, jog, and got their families there. This demon, who had no kind of remorse or compassion for these sisters, 30 operations on Antarctica alone, taking forceps and shoving it up their vagina, and they kicking, screaming, and hollering with no anesthesia. And his name is Dr. Marion Sims. What's the name of this talk? A history of mass murder, cover-ups, and exploitation of black people in America. I can be here till tomorrow, non-stop. I'm just picking out the ones that really set with me and came off the top of my head. I'm speaking to you from the heart, but this is factual information. When the most honorable Elijah Muhammad came out and called white people the devil, back in the day, everyone had a problem with him. Okay? I'm not trying to get anyone to follow Elijah Muhammad, to follow Minister Farrakhan, to be a Muslim, or to be with the Nation of Islam. I just want you to think about what he said. He said, these people are the devil. Okay? Now, my question is, or my statement first is, the two most powerful forces in this galaxy or in this existence of life is God and the devil. Two forces that are totally opposite. We know which one is superior. The Most High is superior. But my thing is, they're total opposites. God and the devil are total opposites. I want you to go to your dictionary and look up what are the characteristics of a devil. What are they? And what I am telling you and what you have seen. What you have seen, is it godly or is it the works of a devil? Murder, bloodshed, exploitation, thievery, robbery, rape. Wherever they go, this is what they do. Is it godlike or is it the devil? And is it godlike to know these things that happen and you still see people suffering behind the works of what another people has done to another people, and then you stand by and you benefit directly from it, meaning white America, and you do and say nothing? Is that godlike? Is there some in-between between the actions of God and the devil? And if so, what's the name of that force? Just something for you to think about. Now, moving along. So we done talked about bones in the basement. We done talked about what happened back in the 1830s in the state of Alabama and other places with Dr. Marion Sims, who has a statue in Central Park, and he forced operations on black slaves. And he gets called the father of gynecology? Really? That's very, very interesting. How about, let's move along into the 1955 with the CIA and the government with chemical and biological warfare. Chemical and biological warfare, the same chemical and biological warfare that they performed on the Native Americans with smallpox. It's called, I'm not even going to go into the details of that, it's called the Trail of Tears, where they made them walk from the South, like North Carolina and South Carolina, forced them out by no other than President Andrew Jackson. He was involved, forced them from that region of the country clear to the Midwest, like Oklahoma, because they wanted that land, and they called themselves being humanitarians and gave them blankets, but they laced the blankets with chemical and biological warfare, which we know now is smallpox. If I would show you the pictures of those people, it would make you puke. It is horrific, big lumps all on their face from the smallpox. Chemical and biological warfare. But what about the chemical and biological warfare in 1955 in Georgia? Now we back in Georgia again, and everyone wants to move there. Did you know that chemical and biological warfare was waged against a people in the neighborhood called Carver Village? Almost all black people lived there, and the government came there, was putting these posts with bags in them, and was telling the people there, the neighbors there, that they was just doing a little experiment with the sky or something like that. But what the people didn't know is that what was in these bags was mosquitoes, because they was trying to figure out something about yellow fever, if it really existed, and how it interacted and what effect it had on people. So I'm going to say it again. In 1955, the government went into Carver Village in Georgia in 1955 and was putting these posts in the backyard of people. And they was telling the people it was just some kind of harmless experiment. But what they were really doing was they had infected the mosquitoes. They released over 300,000 mosquitoes in these posts in different parts of this village to see how yellow fever interacts and affects human beings. Do you know people got typhoid fever? I think I'm saying it right. Encephalitis and all other kind of disease, and many of them died. This was in 1955 by our government. They did this to those people there in Carver Village. Absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. If anyone saw my post when I made the announcement that I was going to do this talk tonight, you saw a bunch of young black men kind of sitting in a corridor. It was some on the left, some on the right. That is what you call, and this will be my last one, that is what you call the Wrightsville 21. The Wrightsville 21 in Arkansas. Absolute horrific story. My good brother Abdul out of Texas, a brother that I grew up with, his family has helped me a great deal with my spirituality. My brother Abdul Muhammad, he actually clicked me on to this story, and he said, bro, you got to speak on this. So it's this story that happened just in 1959 in Arkansas called the Wrightsville 21. It was a boarding school there. I forget the name of the boarding school, but this boarding school would take mostly young, underprivileged black boys off the street for petty crimes, or because the boys didn't have anywhere to go, or because they had an unstable home environment. Don't this stuff sound familiar? Petty crimes, no crimes at all a lot of times, or because they didn't have a stable home environment. Bring them to these boarding schools where they were supposed to teach them welding and carpentry and different things like that. The few whites that they had there had more privilege than the blacks, and they were basically there just doing hard labor. This is the Hour of Power by Brother Sharif. So at this boarding school in 1959 in Arkansas, on the night of March the 5th, 1959, at 4 a.m. in the morning, mysteriously, as they are in this corridor or in this room, 69 black boys were padlocked in a room, and they couldn't get out, and a fire breaks out. No white people around. A fire breaks out on March the 5th, 1959 at this boarding school in Arkansas. Many of the boys, it was 69 of them in there, all black. Many of the boys had to bust windows out to get out. 48 of the 69 escaped, but many of them were injured. 21 children, ranging from the ages of like 7 to 15, perished in the fire. This is called the Wrightsville 21 because I think the name of the boarding school was Wrightsville something, and it was in Pulaski County. which was a county in Arkansas. And at 4 a.m. in the morning on March the 5th, so just earlier this month, March the 5th marked the 59th anniversary of this tragedy. 4 a.m., March the 5th, 1959, a mysterious fire breaks out. The boys are padlocked in a room, or in a dorm. That's what it was. It was in a dorm. They had to break windows out to get out of the dorm. Okay, 48 of them got out, but 21 of them, ranging from the ages, I think, from 7 to 15, was padlocked in there, and they died in the fire. Still to this day, no justice. No one called to account for it. And do you know the superintendent of the school was a man by the name of Mr. Gaines, and he was black? What in the hell was he doing at that school? He wasn't even held responsible. They tried to blame it on him, but he said his staff didn't do anything wrong because these children were flight risks. They were runners. So they were within their right to have them locked in. But where'd the fire come from? Padlocked in and they couldn't get out? Any building got fire codes and certain codes that you have to live by. So if a fire does break out, you can escape safely. 69 of them in there. They had to bust windows out to get out. No fire escape, no route to get out. And 21 of them, just children, died in the fire. This is called the Wrightsville 21 fire in Arkansas. The Wrightsville 21 fire in Arkansas. Look it up. Hardly no one talks about it. Hardly no one. I didn't even know about it until my good brother Abdul clicked me onto it, and I promised him I would speak on it. So that's the Wrightsville 21. So those are the cases I want you to look up in case you didn't know. The one I just mentioned, the Wrightsville 21 fire. 21 of our babies perished in a fire, padlocked in a boarding school and in a dorm in 1959. Not 1439, not 1399. 1959. Many of our parents were alive and in school. I want you to look up Dr. Marion Sims, the father of gynecology, how he forced operations on slave women, taking forceps and tools and shoving it up their vagina, practicing a gynecology. And he forced at least 30 operations on a slave girl named Anarcha alone. I want you to look up Bones in the Basement, where at the Medical College of Georgia, back in the 1880s, when they wanted to do experiments and study and research on the human body, they hired a former slave by the name of Grandison Harris and would send him to a cemetery by the name of Cedar Grove, a cemetery there in Georgia, and he would dig up dead bodies in the cemetery, and he digged up so many dead bodies they gave him the nickname the Resurrection Man. Yes, these things actually happen. I want you to look up Cedar Village in Georgia and how the CIA and the government released over 300,000 mosquitoes so they could see how yellow fever interacts or affects the body. That happened in 1955. Mass murder, cover-ups, and exploitation of black people. And I also talked about the Trail of Tears briefly with our Native American brothers, how they forced them out of North Carolina and Tennessee and all those areas and made them walk to the Midwest, to places like Oklahoma and Arizona. How do you think so many Native Americans are in those areas on reservations? It's because of the Trail of Tears, and they forced them there via President Andrew Jackson. And laced their blankets that they gave them as a humanitarian act with smallpox, chemical and biological warfare, mass murder, cover-ups, and exploitation of our people. Finishing up, another school shooting today? What is going on? In Maryland, another school shooting, 2 injured, the gunman killed. I think he was 17-year-old white dude, and he supposedly got upset because his 14-year-old girlfriend supposedly didn't want to be with him no more, so he shot her, injured another one, and then the police had to take him out. A good friend of mine in that area actually sent me a message and said the male victim that got shot but survived was her co-worker's cousin. I'm going to say that again. A good friend of mine sent me a message and said